Reddit, what's the worst way you found out a significant other was cheating on you? I found out after my girlfriend dumped me. All my friends were like, well, that's what happens when you're in an open relationship with 3 other guys. I was not in an open relationship to my knowledge. Apparently my girlfriend had told all my friends that we were open, so they knew about it and just assumed I was okay with it. The guy she was cheating on me with had a girlfriend. The girlfriend keyed my car by mistake. There was surveillance video everywhere. Took police less than an hour to solve it. The police broke the news to me. They were very cool about it. I was buying a house at the time, and was touring one with the realtor. The homeowner came home early, and we got to talking. Turns out she worked with my girlfriend. I told her I was the boyfriend, and she said, "Oh, so you are Tom. She told me all about you." I am not Tom. The homeowner went to her car and got on her phone. 20 minutes later I got a call saying my girlfriend wanted to break up. Couldn't agree more. Never saw her again. Grad school. She went back to the sorority house because she wasn't feeling well. I finished some homework and turned on the TV to watch our college team play basketball. She was courtside with someone else. He three-way called me with the other girl on the line, told me, and then they both started laughing, which was the first moment I realized that the call was not just me and him. It was in high school. Her kid told me as I was babysitting. In college I was at a huge house party on a Thursday night. My girlfriend claimed to have to study for a tough exam, so I rolled out solo while she stayed in. This party was pretty rambunctious and wild, with people scattered throughout the 2 floors and a roof/deck. At one point in the party I noticed that the bottom/main floor was emptying out and I hear a lot of noise on the roof. So I head upstairs to see what's going on, and all the guys and girls are hooting, hollering, cheering, etc. So I get closer to get a peek at what they are cheering. Across the street in the 3rd floor of an apartment building, slightly below our line of vision, there is a dude bending this girl over a bar stool type chair with her face near the window. It was dark out, but there's a small amount of background light in the room, and because of the lighting of the street light we can all see pretty clearly. As I focus in further, I see that it's my girlfriend getting her back blown out. In a fit of drunken anger I throw a half can of beer across the street and amazingly hit near the window enough that they both look up and see their audience across the street. Then they both seem to scatter and everyone on the roof cheers loudly, with only 2 or 3 people I know closely realizing that it's my girlfriend. I storm downstairs and wait outside the apartment building, until she finally exits 20 minutes later. I doubt she saw me in the crowd on the roof, but she quickly found out I saw, or at least knew, as I cursed her for 5 minutes and stormed back to the party. It was pretty awkward at the party when I returned, at least for half of the party who were sober enough to sort of realize what was going on, and proceeded to get drunker. Later that night I was approached by a decent-looking girl who saw it all go down. And that, kids, was the first time I ever received pity sex. Suddenly having herpes a year into the relationship. Gave him the benefit of the doubt, that he may have had it before we got together, since a lot of people never show symptoms. Then, at some kind of church group thing we went to, seeing another girl wearing one of my shirts. It was a guy's Metallica shirt, that he sometimes wore. Turns out he wore it to this girl's house, and left it there. His girlfriend showed up at the place we both worked at. She had gone backpacking for a few months and showed up to surprise him. Not only had I been cheated on, but I was the other woman. When my ex was giving birth to our only child, there were complications. They had to do an emergency C-section. When my daughter came out, she wasn't breathing on her own, and they rushed her to the infant ICU. My ex asked me to take pictures for her. I took 2 before they took my daughter away. I went to tell her parents what was going on. They wanted to see the pics. I scrolled too far, and found pictures of her with an old ex, from just a few months earlier. In front of both our mothers. Right in the middle of all of this, I find out she was cheating. I then had to go back in the room, where my daughter was still getting worked on, and my ex was still cut open. I had to shut the fuck up and deal with it. What should have been the best day of my life, turned out to be one of my worst. She went down to Florida for a weekend with her best friend. She had mentioned she had an ex-boyfriend down there, but they were not going to meet up. I picked her up from the airport after her weekend getaway. We didn't talk the whole car ride home. That's how I knew. High school girlfriend. At her aunt's funeral. I live in Ohio, she lived in Pennsylvania with her mom, but her dad and best friend, who I was also friends with and that's how we met, lived in the same neighborhood as me, so we were doing the long distance relationship thing for a few years. Anyways, her aunt passes, I take time off work and drive myself and her cousin to Pennsylvania to attend the funeral. Arrive at her aunt's house where all of her family from out of town were meeting and staying for the funeral the next day. There is a guy there that she is hugging on when I walk in the door, tells me not to worry, he's her cousin she hasn't seen in a couple years. No worries, I understand, I tell her. Fast forward to the next day, at the funeral home. She is being distant and basically ignoring and avoiding me, but every time I find her she is with this guy that is supposedly her cousin. I chalk it up to her being upset, she was close to her aunt. Her cousin that I took with me asked me to go out to my car and grab his cell phone he left in the glove box, and there I find her, giving her cousin head in the back seat of my car. So, not only did she cheat on me, she cheated on me with someone she told me was her cousin, in the parking lot of the funeral home, at her aunt's funeral, in the back seat of my car. She told me while we were in the middle of the dinner celebrating our 5-year anniversary. A very pregnant woman approached me and asked how I knew her boyfriend. She was talking about my boyfriend. We didn't know about each other. Found a receipt for minutes purchased for a phone on a network we didn't use. Found the phone a few hours later. Found the texts detailing just how much she liked having his dick in her mouth. Found out I was strong enough to kick out the mother of my children, with whom I'd spent 2 decades, become a kick-ass single dad, and take back my life. Found out I remembered how to have fun, live a good life, and have a lot of fun dating. Found out I hadn't lost the ability to love. Found an amazing woman and a great life. I worked for my university and that job paid for my education. His wife showed up at my work and started calling me a slut. I didn't even know he was married. By the time she was done, my boss, fellow students, and professors sure knew. Almost lost my job and school funding because of it. I was with a girl all through high school. I went off to join the US Navy. She was writing me multiple letters a week, sending me pictures, etc. One day I get a letter from my mom, in basic you only get a couple phone calls home unless it's an emergency, that basically explained that she had gone over to visit my girlfriend one day and found her on her front porch banging some dude. So I had to hear from my mother, in a letter, that my girlfriend of 5 years was banging some other dude. Her neighbor later confirmed it. That sucked. I was 5 months pregnant. We were standing on the street watching the annual town parade. He stood behind me lovingly wrapping his arms around me. Suddenly a bystander walked up and punched him, shouting, "You are so busted, Tom." It was the woman he was cheating on me with. So many options. I guess the absolute worst was when she asked me to drive her to this dude's hotel. He was a semi-celebrity here on a kind of tour. She claimed they had to talk about business, which wasn't unbelievable under the circumstances. Anyways, couple hours later she calls me to pick her up. Once we're home, she tells me that she just went into his room, pulled her pants down, and told him fuck me. She just needed to get pounded, she said, or something to that effect. As much as I was already dead inside by that point, this was a whole new level. I'd say probably waiting until I'd moved across the country, then telling me that she was in love with somebody else 3 days after I made the move. That detail would have been nice to know before I turned down a teaching contract, sold half of my things, and moved the rest to a city where I had no other friends or family. My ex-fiancé lost his virginity to my best friend. On my birthday. In my bed. I walked up to let them know I was about to blow out my candles and found them together. Got mobile phone bills over $700 for 2 months with a lot of less than 1 minute calls on it to Scotland. She thought less than 1 minute wouldn't show up on a bill. She'd call him and talk for 45 seconds, hang up and call back. The kind of ironic thing is that the calls didn't show up. An unconnected call charge was on the bill. Phone company thought she was getting a message machine and was only charging the connect fee or something. Completed work early, boss sent me home. Open front door to her sitting on a dude's lap. What you doing, dear? I asked politely and calmly. She looked at me and said nothing and smiled. To which I replied, nothing, better go home before I break him in two. Dude scrambled out my door. Girlfriend tried to explain that it wasn't cheating as I collected her things and threw her out in the street.